What's up, guys? In this video we're going to be covering how to construct an end grain target. I've had this one for about 6 months or so and it's still got some life left in it. Check the description. There's going to be timestamps and additional information in there. Let's get started. I want to start out by highlighting 2 important rules that must be followed for best results. I also want to encourage healthy skepticism when considering target designs. A bad design may only last a few days. Rule number 1, keep it tight. This means no gaps or space between blocks. This also means nothing shifts when the target is struck by a thrown object. The blocks resist splitting when they have nowhere to go. Rule number 2, keep it wet. Dry targets are destroyed much faster. For best results, the target should be wet before each throwing session. For lack of a better term, this heals the target's surface. One of the challenges is designing a target that survives repeated cycles of expansion and contraction from absorbing water. This process can create space between blocks or even break the frame. This is a photo of the tools I used to complete this project. I'll include a detailed list in the description. By no means do I consider myself a craftsman, and expensive tools are not needed. Most importantly, you will need a saw able to handle a 6x6 post. An electric chainsaw would be the cheapest option. At the time of making this video, I found one at Harbor Freight for as little as $50. Alright, so next let's go over the frame and the materials that we need to produce the target. I'm going to put all this information in the description just in case I miss anything. First of all, as far as the wood, one 8-foot piece of 6x6 will produce one target, and that's cut up into 5.5-inch cubes. So what we have here with the frame, this is 2x6 right here, which is actually 5.5 inches, the same depth as our target. Then we have 5/8-inch threaded rods, 2 of those. I'm using couplers, but you can just use hex nuts if you want. 5/8 inch, so we need 4 of those, and then we'll also need 4 washers. Then up at the top here, I hang mine with hooks. I don't know if you can see them. It's kind of up to you how you want to mount it. Then finally, we'll need our wood glue, and then I use a 1-inch thick jigsaw mat. Just a panel that I cut of it, and that's used to evenly distribute the pressure on the columns that are clamped between this frame right here. So this is an old one that I pulled off my last target, and you can see the difference between that and there's a new one here. All right, so after we've cut the wood and after our frame is produced, the next step is to set up the blocks and arrange them in the way that we want the target to be constructed. The things we want to keep in mind are knots, cracks in the wood, and messed up corners. So let's go over this as an example and point out the problems with the configuration. First of all, we've got some knots that are in the center blocks. Secondly, you'll notice there's conjoined cracks, so cracks from 2 different blocks that meet. This can easily be fixed, again, by flipping a block or moving it to the edge. Also, you'll notice here we have a busted up corner. Maybe this happened from the chainsaw, or maybe this was the very end of my 6x6. Either way, this is another situation where we can flip it to move it to the edge. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to put them in here the same exact configuration they are on the ground, and I'm going to glue each block to the block next to it. I'm not going to glue it to the frame. So I can even stick this in here now. Fits in there nicely. And this is one of the reasons I use couplers, just a little bit easier to work with your hands. They cost a little bit more, but I think it's worth it. While the glue is still wet, you have the opportunity to make the face of your target nice and flush. I prefer to keep the entire target clamped except for the row I'm working on. Use your hammer to tap the blocks. This is where a larger hammer or mallet comes in handy. After the glue has dried, we'll inspect the target and fill in any gaps. So we can see this target looks pretty good. All the corners are pretty tight looking, but I did find one area up here where this shim actually does fit in this gap. So I'm going to fill it with some glue, and I'm going to glue the shim inside of it, and then I'll cut it off flush after it dries. I'll briefly cover my range and target stand. Check out the description for more information. Basically what we have here is it's constructed with 4x4s and it's plug and play with post-based anchors and strong ties. Then over here, these are cheap flagpoles and drop cloths, and that's used to kind of create a tunnel to contain everything in the area over my rubber mats. I use rubber mats for the floor and also around my target to prevent ricochets. And these are hung on here with rope hooks. The ones on the sides are adjustable left and right, and they're hung on threaded rods. This one on the top just hooks to the top of the target. Then, as I mentioned before, the target itself is hung by the frame with screw eyes and hooks. The convenient target design makes it easy to remove from the stand and spray outside so I don't have to get my range wet. The target should be watered before each session. This causes the wood fibers to expand, filling gaps and holes created from damage. I highly recommend a tank sprayer. I allow the water to pool on the surface, then slowly seep into the target. I repeat this several times to get it nice and saturated. The jigsaw mat spacer allows room for the blocks to expand without breaking the frame. After the target is broken in, it more efficiently absorbs the water, and removing it from the stand isn't necessary. I'd like to wrap things up with some final thoughts. First of all, this is an easy design with a proven track record, but it isn't the only choice. There are also designs that fasten the blocks with screws, and even designs that are purely pressure fit. I recommend these other designs for serious competition throwers who typically throw heavier knives or axes at the same spot over and over again. In this case, replacing individual blocks is convenient. The build I showed you in this video could also be a purely pressure fit design if heavy-duty clamps are used. Tighten the clamps while the target is dry, then wet the target so the blocks expand slightly and everything becomes super tight. The disadvantage to this design is the weight and awkward shape of the target. I previously designed a hoist system to account for this, and my ricochet preventing mats were also used to protect the rope and hardware. I've also had success separating glued blocks and even transplanting fresh blocks into a glued target. A hammer and chisel worked well on my 2x4 target. If 6x6 is more difficult to separate, I can try a combination of splitting axe, wedge, and sledgehammer. This will allow me to recycle and reuse the blocks. I've always used my ingrain targets indoors. If I were to use it outdoors, depending on how exposed it is, I'd cover it with a tarp or a large contractor trash bag to protect the hardware and wood from the elements. No matter how good your target is built, I don't think it's a good idea to multiply its exposure to extreme cycles of expansion and contraction. What kind of target do you use and how well does it hold up? Do you like this classroom style backdrop? Please leave questions and comments down below and like the video if you found it to be helpful. This is my first long form video, so your feedback is especially important.